Welcome back, Math 8. Today we are going to work on solving one-step equations. I want you to take a second and write down everything that you know about equations. What has to be in an equation, what might you see in an equation, everything you can think of. Go ahead and pause your video now. All right. Before we can do anything with an equation, we have to understand how to solve it. We have some pretty simple steps, 3 simple steps that are very, very important. If you follow the 3 steps, you'll almost always get your equation right. So if you look down here, you'll see my handy dandy word bank. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can fill in some of these answers. Okay, so using some of our skills from ELA, we can really easily read through this and decide what words fit in which blanks. So number 1 says, what you do to one side, you blank due to the blank. Well, if we look down here in our word bank, we've got a couple of numbers, we've got some operations, and then we've got some other things. So I don't think either of these blanks are going to work for numbers. It doesn't really sound like if I multiply one side, I subtract the other side. That doesn't really make sense. But that leaves me with must and other. So what you do to one side, you other do to the must. Or what you do to one side, you must do to the other. That makes a little bit more sense, right? Okay, so you can make any number blank by adding or blank. So we know that we're going to use one of our numbers here. We're going to either use 1 or we're going to use 0. And we're talking about we can do something to make a number by adding, or we're probably talking about one of our inverse operations. So this is adding. Our inverse operation to adding is subtracting. So we know that we're going to say this is subtracting. And if I know that I have 3 and I subtract 3, I get 0. So my answer here is going to be 0. Now we've used that one. All right. Well, we kind of only have 2 left now, huh? So you can make any number blank by blank or dividing. Well, we only have one number left, so 1. And again, dividing, our inverse operation is multiplying. So always follow these steps. Start with number 1. Then go to number 2, and then number 3. You have to do the steps in order. Okay, here I want you to go ahead and try to solve this equation. You have x minus 7/2 equals 14/2. What do you think you're going to do first? Take a second now and pause the video to try and solve this. Okay, so we have x minus 7/2 equals 14 and 1/2. what's my goal? My goal is to find out what x is. What is the value of x? Okay. So I've got this -7/2 next to this. So my first step is always to rewrite the equation. All right, next, what is the inverse? How can I make this equal to 0? Because I just want that x by itself. I can add 7/2, but if we look back at our 3 commandments, we know that what we do to one side, we must do to the other side. That leaves us with x. And if you need to write +0 as a placeholder just to remind yourself, you can. But most of the time in math, you will just see x by itself now on this side. And then I'm going to add it as 14, and then 7 + 1 is 8. And the denominator is the same, 2. So now I have x equals 14 and 8/2. Well, what was the step that I took? I added 7/2 to both sides. Well, what does 8 divided by 2 equal? Let me write this a little bit smaller. There. So now I can say that x equals 14 plus 8/2. So, but what is 8/2? 8/2 is the same as 4. So we could also write this as 14 plus 4, or because we're in middle school, we know that 14 plus 4 is 18. So then what did I do? What was the step I took? We simplified. And then our final answer, we circle. Now, what inverse operation did you use, and why did you use it? Go ahead and pause the video here and answer that question. Okay, as you can see on my screen now, I have 4 problems. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to try these 4 problems using the same method we used above. Show your math over here. Show your math. Write out your steps. 1, 2. And then when you're done, tell me which inverse operation you used. So if you had to add to both sides, the inverse operation you used was addition. What would it be if it was multiplication? Division, yeah? Okay, so you're going to tell me which operation you used. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.